it's not right for me really. So I think I'll probably go back to just meditating at the same time as the.
Yeah, no, I really appreciated you making the effort. Thank you.
Oh, I appreciated you being so kind as to include me. It was a nice thing having a sangha there, but it felt a bit strange and rushed.
Well, you know where to find us. We're always there.
Yeah. What a very fine website and lots going on.
Yeah.
Thank you. So yeah, which precepts are we doing this morning?
We don't know.
No.
It's going to be a surprise.
It's going to be a surprise.
The teaching. And Saddhaloka is going to present it, I believe.
There's an extra paragraph on the fifth proof, number 5, that was missed off, so I've just added it on. So that's like the last page.
Okay, so this is to do with the teaching at the time of death. The instant of death.
It's just the end part of the number 5.
There wasn't enough material already.
There wasn't?
If there wasn't enough material already, you've got another paragraph somewhere.
Yeah. Just for the sake of completion.
We'll have to manage without it, I think.
I'll send it when I finish the presentation.
Could you mention it when you introduce it, you'll send it?
Yeah. Okay, it's Namo Buddhaya.
Namo Buddhaya.
Namo Dharmaya.
Namo Dharmaya.
Namo Sanghaya.
Namo Sanghaya.
Namo Namah.
Namo Namah.
Okay, so we're going to be looking at precept number 5 today. So apparently it hasn't appeared on our resources page, so I was sure I'd sent it. I'll have to check what happened there as soon as this presentation is finished. And it'll be sent again. Say that these numbers, they don't appear in the text. They just reflect the order in which they appear in the text, just so that those of us leading the study know which one we're dealing with and sharing them round and so on. So, and I did find there was another paragraph to this number 5 that I'd left, so I've given those here an extra page, and I also sent last night an extra page to the resources page, so it's everything again after this. So let's just begin by reading. When the Venerable Atisha was staying at Yer Padruk near Lhasa, he gave the following precept to Yeshe Barwa of Olgud. I bow down to the Blessed One and to Aryatara. I bow down to the Holy Dharma, the Holy Lamas. Noble sons, reflect deeply on these words. In the Kali Yuga, the lives of men are short and there is much to be understood. The duration of life is uncertain. You do not know how long you will live. Thus you must make great effort now to fulfill your right desires. Do not proclaim yourself a bhikkhu if you obtain the necessities of life in the manner of a layman. Though you live in a monastery and have given up worldly activities, if you fret about what you have given up, you have no right to claim, I am a bhikkhu living in a monastery. If your mind still persists in desire for pretty things and still produces harmful thoughts, do not proclaim, I am a bhikkhu living in a monastery. If you still go about with worldly people and waste time in worldly senseless talk with those with whom you live, even though you are living in a monastery, do not proclaim, I am a bhikkhu living in a monastery. If you are impatient and go about feeling slighted, if you cannot be even the least bit helpful to others, do not proclaim, I am a bodhisattva bhikkhu. If you speak thus to worldly people, you are a great liar. You may get away with saying such things. However, you cannot deceive those who have the boundless sight of clairvoyance, nor can you deceive those who have the Dharma eye of great omniscience. Neither can you deceive yourself, for the effect of karma follows after you. So that's the beginning of this precept. So it begins with devotion to Tara, to the Buddha, to Tara, to the teachers. Recall, he always begins his songs with devotion to Marpa and the lineage of teachers. And it's not so usual here for in these precepts for that to be included. It may have been originally, but it hasn't come down to us in these recorded accounts of the talks. So Atisha says, reflect deeply on these words. They're not offered lightly or casually. Yes, noting they're given to this monk who apparently also received teachings from Ku, Nok, and Drom. This monk was a great meditator, spent much of his life in meditation and awakening through that. But the text is obviously given not just to one person, but to a number of disciples. So the Kali Yuga is a dark age in Indian mythology. It's been mentioned a few times in these precepts. The Kali Yuga is the fourth and worst of the four world ages in Hindu mythology, a time of discord, quarrelling, and when life is short. So it's said to have begun 5,000 years ago, and it's got another 426,000 years to go. So, yeah, it's that's the sort of mythology behind this. So, yeah, against this sort of background of this time of decline and difficulty, Atisha is saying life is short. There's a lot to be understood. You can't afford to waste this life. Right desires here is going to be Dharmachanda, our desire for the Dharma, our desire for the truth, as against Kamachanda. So he emphasizes the need for great effort. So what do we make of this talk of the Kali Yuga and the Dark Age? I mean, it does seem to be just every age and culture you turn to seem to talk of themselves as somehow being in a period of decline. A previous golden age now is this dark age of difficulty and decline. And in some there are these apocalyptic visions, of the end of it all. And certainly with talk of climate change, pollution, greed, conflict, there's plenty to support the idea of us being in a dark age of decline. And how do we respond to this? How do we difficult, dark times? Do we feel, well, we've just got to get out on the streets, join in Extinction Rebellion or whatever, glue ourselves to roads, do whatever is needed? Or do we find ourselves thinking, what difference can my feeble little efforts at practice make? Or even what difference can my heartfelt and intense efforts at practice make? So what Tisha seems to be really insisting that it's important, it's crucial we practice as wholeheartedly as possible. And I think there's this understanding in the tradition that every current of going for refuge, every current of being flowing towards the three jewels, towards enlightenment, makes a difference. And they can flow together. These currents can flow together and grow. And it's not just a short-term view. The Buddhist perspective does stretch over generations, decades, centuries. It's the long-term view that no striving towards the three jewels is ever lost. The sense that we're part of something much greater. And here the context of the Bodhisattva ideal is wanting us to wake up to this fact that, what we do matters, that somehow there is this, if you like, cosmic project that we can engage in and play our part in. So where, though, do we stand? If we stop and honestly think, where am I? Am I sort of a bit overwhelmed by this sort of, our own version of the Kali Yuga, our own version in the West, of modern West, of the dark age that we're falling into? And how do we respond to that? How do we really take on the situation and the world? So, yeah, Atisha continues, and I find this interesting. He's deadly serious, but I also get the impression he's having a bit of fun. This thing of don't call yourself a bhikkhu if you're doing this. I'm a bhikkhu living in a monastery. Don't say that if you're not really doing it. But I can imagine there were quite a few smiles and bit of laughter amongst the monks as he was talking. So yeah, this sense of again, this sort of warmth and humour, as well as real seriousness, that I think comes through with Atisha. So yes, he's talking to monks here, people who are serious practitioners. But then, we're order members. We're also, I hope, serious practitioners. And, it could be interesting if we change the wording in the text, so don't call yourself an order member if, so, and how do we transpose, if you like, what he's saying to monks to ourselves? Bhante certainly saw that being an order member should make a difference. We say we're neither lay nor monastic, but this definitely means that we're not just enjoying the spiritual icing on the cake of an otherwise very comfortable life. We actually need to be seriously practicing. A difference should make a difference. Committing ourselves to the three jewels should make a fundamental difference to our lives. We have many of us worldly commitments and responsibilities, but then where do we stand in all of that? Do we fundamentally take our stand in the Dharma, or do we take our stand in mundane values and attitudes? I think that's what a text like this challenges us to really look at very carefully. So, Atisha goes on. Moreover, when generating Bodhi mind, remember the vows you have taken before the lamas and deities. Do not say, it's too difficult to be patient, when you meet with someone who gives you the opportunity for special patience. Remember that even if it's very difficult, there's always something that can be done. Prior to taking a vow, consider carefully whether it's too difficult for you to keep. For if you do not keep a vow once you have taken it, you will be deceiving the lamas and deities. And again, always remember that even though a thing seems to be difficult, there is always something that can be done. So yes, we've taken our vows. At the time of ordination, we said, with loyalty to my teachers, I accept this ordination. In harmony with friends and companions, I accept this ordination. For the attainment of enlightenment, I accept this ordination. For the benefit of all beings, I accept this ordination. So, yes, we have those vows that we're seeking to live up to and be true to. So, yes, he says, even if it's difficult to be, there's that story I mentioned earlier on of the Bengali cook, the really bad-tempered, grumpy Bengali cook that Atisha brought with him to Tibet, and later admitted, he'd brought him because he was grumpy and bad-tempered, and he gave him a real opportunity to practice patience. But then, later realised the Tibetans gave him plenty of opportunity. He didn't need this Bengali cook as well. So, yes, this idea as well, the valuing of somebody who gives us the opportunity for special patience. The valuing somebody who really challenges us. You get that in Shantideva in the Bodhicharyavatara, don't you? Where he says we should really value a good enemy. Somebody who really keeps us on our toes, really challenges us to develop patience and metta, work with anger and hurt and so on. He says we should see them as a great treasure. It's easy to find friends, but to find a really good enemy who really puts us on our mettle, that's not so easy. So he has a bit of a challenging attitude there towards the person who challenges us. And there's quite a bit of on the importance of vows and keeping the vows we take. So a vow, you could say, is a public ordination, a public declaration of one's commitment to a certain behaviour. And it's there as a support to really help us maintain that. But before we take a vow, there should be already a strong momentum in us that really wants to go in that direction, as it is very undermining to break a vow, undermining for oneself and undermining for others, maybe others' faith in the Dharma and so on. So yes, this need to be really sure if we take a vow in the Dharma life, we're going to keep it. And then this phrase that he repeats twice, there's always something that can be done. There's always something that can be done. Maybe again, one of those things we don't always want to hear, is it? But he seems quite insistent. There's always something that can be done. To stay in a monastery, it's necessary to give up worldly ways and attachment to friends and relatives. By renouncing these, you are getting rid of of all the cooperating causes of attachment and longing. From then on, you must seek the precious Bodhi mind. Not even for an instant should you allow your past obsession with worldly concerns to arise. Formerly, you did not properly practice the Dharma, and under the influence of past habits that sapped your strength, you continually produced the concepts of a worldly person. Because such concepts are predominant, unless you make use of a strong antidotes to them, it's useless to remain in a monastery. You would be like the birds and wild animals that live there. So yes, he speaks of joining a monastery as removing the conditions that support our attachment and longings. So one now has to face them, meet them, deal with them in the raw, if you like. The supportive conditions that allow us to sort of justify them and sort of just live with them. They're taken away when one enters a monastery. But obviously Atisha has seen many monks who manage to go to a monastery and still retain a very worldly life. And abbots and others enjoying wealth and reputation as teachers, and he's really speaking against that. So yes, again, something we can look at, how do we actually remove the supportive conditions of our attachments and longings? We could say when we go on retreat, that's there at least for a spell of time. And those who've been able to go on longer retreats, months, 3 months, a year, that gives you a much stronger opportunity to really see those attachments and forces and passions, and to really work at them. And yes, he says there's need for a strong antidote. And what are our strong antidotes? How do we actually manage to deal with these forces within us that are counter to the Dharma? Do we know where our attachments are? Do we see them? Are we working with them to loosen them? So all of those questions, again, are sort of raised by this text. Do not think it is too difficult to apply the antidotes right now. If the wish-fulfilling jewel should happen to fall into the hands of a blind man, fall from the hands of a blind man, he may never find it again. As you practice, do not count the months and years, but continually examine the strength of your meditation and the extent of your realization. See whether or not your fettering passions are diminishing. Always be mindful. Do not make yourself miserable, nor should you ever even attempt to deceive yourself or the lamas or deities. Do not do anything that would bring disaster to yourself and others. Again, there's always something to be done. Do not think it's too difficult to apply the antidotes right now. And this image of the blind man who's discovered the jewel that probably all familiar with. I think again that you find that in the Bodhicitta Avatara. Blind man discovers a precious jewel in a heap of rubbish. But if having discovered that jewel, one drops it, one might never find it again. So this sense, we've found the Dharma. We have this opportunity to enter more deeply into the Dharma, and we really have to make sure we follow that through this opportunity as fully as we can, so that, if you like, the Dharmic momentum of our being will carry us through this life and into future lives, that we're not going to lose that precious jewel now we've got hold of it. And yes, don't count the months and years. That's quite striking, isn't it? Just this sense, we can somehow think, I've been doing this for 6 months now, 2 years now, 5 years now. I was very taken when, I think it was on my ordination retreat, Bhante said, we often greatly overestimate what we might achieve in 6 months or a year or 2 years. And we greatly underestimate what we might achieve in 5 years or 10 years. It's like we're looking for the quick fix. We're looking to we want something to happen. And if it hasn't happened hasn't happened dramatically enough, quickly enough, we start to think, the Dharma is not working. And this sense of this bigger perspective, this bigger vision, this sense that, the long view, that everything counts. The little things matter. There's those lovely verses in the Dhammapada where it says, drop by drop, the pot fills. And it fills either with the unskillful and harmful, or it fills with the skillful and positive. This sense that we live moment by moment, drop by drop, and it matters again and again how we respond. Again, there's that very telling phrase in the Sutra of Golden Light where they speak of the oppression of the moment. In the oppression of the moment, we lose sight of the Dharma. We lose sight of the fact that there's always something that can be done. We lose sight of the fact that the little things count, that we can build up step by step, drop by drop, this dharmic momentum in our life and being. When you diminish the activities of this life, you're only doing what is necessary. If there's a heap of filth in front of you, you have to get rid of it quickly. Should someone help you? Why not be happy? In the same way, you must get rid of all your habitual thoughts, using whatever antidotes are available to you. And if the Lama and your spiritual friends help you to do this, why not be happy? Having promised before the Lamas and deities to work for the benefit of living beings, do not differentiate between those to whom you give gifts. Although there are differences in people, there's no differentiation in Bodhi mind. So when you diminish the activities of this life, you're only doing what is necessary. You know, in following the Dharma, in following this sometimes challenging path, we're simply doing what we really need to do. You know, we're just doing what we need to do to live the most meaningful and fruitful life, both for ourselves and for others. And yes, this idea, you know, if there's a heap of rubbish in front of us, well, we get rid of it. You know, we don't want to be trampling through it and tripping over it and so on. We get rid of it. And you say in the same way, you know, if there's all these habitual thoughts and tendencies in front of us and we keep tripping over them and getting all messed up and smelly because we're tripping into them again and again, well, we have to get rid of them. You know, that's the only thing to do. And if people help us, well, you know, we should be grateful. We shouldn't sort of start feeling, belittled because somebody had to point out to us that this might need change. You know, we can just put aside our pride, just be grateful. You know, if there's help those people who are really ready to help us to overcome our limitations. And don't differentiate between those to whom you give gifts. It's not that you just sort of give carelessly or thoughtlessly. It's just that you don't just go by personal preferences. You know, you give wherever there's an opportunity to give. You don't just give to your favourite people and ignore the rest. It's like this sense of a spirit of generosity that's ready to respond wisely and appropriately wherever there is an opportunity to help, to give skillfully. Do not be angry with those who would harm you. If you allow yourself to become angry, how can you develop patience? When fettering passions arise, you must remember their opposing practice. Otherwise, why bother with a religious practice that increases fettering passions? Constantly guarding your precious Bodhi mind, you should not have the slightest gap in your remembrance. Even a tiny gap appear, the devil of fettering passions will come. And when this devil enters, he will obstruct the Bodhi mind, and you will even be unable to help others and even fall into lower states of being. Think it over. So again, it's, you know, you've got this, he's deadly serious and he's having a bit of fun with the monks, you know, this sort of maintain mindfulness. Don't leave these little windows open where the devil of the defiling passions can get in and take over. Just be really careful not to indulge yourself. Really keep on the ball. Remember again and again where you're going, what you're really trying to do with your life. I was just again recalling with the Bodhicitta Avatara, Shantideva has this image of somebody with a bowl of oil walking through a crowd, and behind them a man with a sword who's going to chop their head off if they spill a drop. That's the sort of sense that Atisha is trying to get across here. You can't afford to leave a gap for the kleshas to get in. You can't afford to leave a gap. You can't afford to spill a drop of oil, or your head's off. Think it over, he says. Think it over. Even if you have the thought, I've done religious practice, you will go to death empty-handed. Noble son, when you die, be careful that your Lama and spiritual friends do not worry or despair. Do not bring doubt or despair to laymen who are faithful to the Dharma. You must check yourself again and again by comparing the teaching of the Buddha with your own mind. If you do not do that, even though you think, I have done religious practice, you will stray from the teaching. Because of this, at the time of death, there will be no sign of your having practiced Bodhi mind. And when the sign that you will fall into lower states of being appears, others will feel great worry and despair. Therefore, do not be lazy in your practice of the Dharma, or let yourself be deceived by the proud thought, I have spent my whole life devoted to religion, and then go empty-handed into the instant of death. So yes, just formal practice, just as it were, sitting on your cushion every morning, going along to a study group, whatever, that alone isn't going to do enough. It's entering into the underlying spirit of the Dharma, entering into and keeping alive that urge that the Dharma carries, that challenges us to go again and again beyond ourselves, beyond limitation, and move towards the wisdom and compassion of the Buddhas. And then finally, in short, staying in a monastery will not be helpful if you do not reverse your obsession for fine things and do not renounce the activities of this life. For if you do not cut off these inclinations, thinking that you can work for the aims of both this and future lives, you will perform nothing but incidental religious practice. This type of practice is nothing but hypocritical and pretentious practice done for selfish gain. Therefore, you should always seek spiritual friends and shun bad company. Do not become settled in one place or accumulate many things. Whatever you do, do in harmony with the Dharma. Let whatever you do be a remedy for the fettering passions. This is actual religious practice. Make great effort to do this. As your knowledge increases, do not be possessed by the demon of pride. Staying in an isolated place, subdue yourself. Have few desires and be contented. Neither delight in your own knowledge, nor seek out the faults of others. Do not be fearful or anxious. Be of good will and have no prejudice. Concentrate on the Dharma when distracted by wrong things. Be humble. And if you are defeated, accept it gracefully. Give up boastfulness. Renounce desire. Always generate the compassionate mind. Whatever you do, do in moderation. Be easily pleased and easily sustained. Run like a wild animal from whatever would entrap you. If you do not renounce worldly existence, do not say you are holy. If you have not renounced land and agriculture, do not say you have entered the priesthood. If you do not renounce desire, do not say you are a bhikkhu. If you are without love and compassion, do not say you are a bodhisattva. If you do not renounce activity, do not say you are a great meditator. Do not cherish your desires. In short, when you stay at a monastery, engage in few activities and just meditate on the Dharma. Do not have cause for repentance at the time of death. So, really there, just in that last paragraph, going over again, summarising the points he's made earlier. So I think, a very challenging, uncompromising precept from Atisha here, and hopefully, one that we can really, get to grips with, take to heart, and find, where it speaks for us and speaks to us, and not just sort of, that's for monks, not for me. What next? Rather, let's really take it as addressed to order members and see what we can make of it in our discussion, and what we can take away from it. Okay, let's leave it there for now. We'll meet again in 20 minutes for our discussion groups.
Thank you.